All right, guys, today we have some more PlayStation news and info to go over and talk about. The first thing we're going to be discussing has to do with the possibility of a PlayStation 5 Pro. How likely is it that we will see mid-gen refresh consoles in the upcoming console generation? Well, we now have a former Xbox executive weighing in and giving their opinion on how unlikely or likely they think it is. And I think their reasoning is pretty interesting, so we will take some time to talk about that. We're also doing a little bit of a follow-up with this acquisition that Sony apparently was pursuing with Leyou Technologies. Again, they house some of the studios that work on Gears Tactics, Warframe, and others. And this was something that Sony apparently was pursuing, but now it seems unlikely that it's going to happen, as Tencent is in exclusive talks, apparently, to acquire them. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be happening. And finally, I want to show you guys the cover art for GodFall, the PlayStation 5 console exclusive, as it was just revealed yesterday what the game case for this game is going to look like. And I think it looks pretty cool. And I think it just kind of shows you how different some of these game cases are going to look just based off of the color palette. So yeah, this is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If you could do me a big favor, make sure you hit the like button to help the video out and show your support. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future content. Hit the bell notification icon so you're notified immediately when a new video goes live. And I want to let you know that tomorrow, Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we are doing the next episode of Press X Podcast. So I hope to see you there. We have a lot of good topics to go over, and I think it's going to be a good time, as it always is. So hope to see you there. But let's start here with the mid-gen console refreshes. The current console generation was marked by the release of mid-gen consoles that offered 4K support and increased power over the base models. This is unlikely to happen for the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles, according to former Xbox executive Albert Pinello. Speaking on the Reset Era forums, Pinello explained why mid-gen PS5 and Xbox Series refreshes are unlikely to happen. The PS4 Pro and Xbox One X were more of a necessity due to 4K displays becoming rapidly more mainstream as the base models were designed to drive 1080p output. And so this is exactly what he had to say on the forums. It may simply be less necessary. 4K was becoming a mainstream resolution for PC and TVs, and the base consoles were designed around driving 1080p or less output. When you have a set that requires 4 times the performance just to drive 4 times the pixels, then you eat up all the performance just driving resolution. I think it's unlikely we'll see 8K TVs go mainstream in the same way we saw 4K go mainstream. We're more likely to see improvements in nits to drive better HDR or better frame rates to support greater than 60 FPS on TVs. CPUs and GPUs in the next gen should easily support higher frame rates and wider colors. So the mid-gen upgrades are not only less financially and technically viable, but also likely less necessary to keep up with display technologies. In a following post, Albert Pinello also highlighted how a 20 to 24 teraflop machine is not going to be affordable in a console form factor even 3 years in, making a PS5 and Xbox Series mid-gen refresh even more unlikely. I don't see a 20 to 24 T-flop machine being affordable in a console form factor even in 3 years. The node change from 7nm to 5nm or 3nm is going to be cost prohibitive, and just mathematically, unless they hit 3nm, you're going to see a 30% reduction size, but you're doubling the T-flops, so the chip has to grow. Additionally, you can't really double the GPU without growing CPU and memory, or you run into other bottlenecks, which further adds cost. And so, finally, he says here, there may be other silicon advancements I'm not privy to, but it's pretty widely known this is a real challenge right now. So looking through today's lens, I think it's unlikely you're going to see a mid-gen console this cycle. Now, I find these comments very interesting because Albert Pinello, he's a guy who knows what he's talking about here. He has worked with Xbox pretty much for every single generation, and he was there for the development of the Xbox One X, so he at least knows when it comes to Microsoft's side of things why they chose to do this. And I think he brings up some really good reasoning here as to why Sony and Microsoft may actually not do mid-gen consoles this time. However, I think there is one really important thing he is missing, at least I would assume, and this is just from the outside looking in. He doesn't mention the fact that this is just a really good way for Sony and Microsoft, and I think we've kind of witnessed this with the PS4 Pro and 1X. It's a really good way for them to just keep consoles more relevant, right? Halfway through the generation. We know that this is a struggle that consoles usually have, where they hit this halfway point of their life cycle, or what is presumed to be their life cycle, and things just kind of struggle a little bit. It doesn't mean that it falls off a cliff, but a slow decline starts. And so if you think about the idea of what the PS4 Pro and the 1X did for the console space, it definitely, I would say, made them even more relevant. It got people talking about it again. It got the enthusiasts obviously very excited. The enthusiasts were there day one, and it just gave Sony and Microsoft a reason to sell a still very expensive console, not have to cut down the price. And so I'm just mentioning this because I think that the stuff he's bringing up here from like a technical level is very true. I agree with him 100%. I do not see 8K TVs going as mainstream as 4K did, not anytime remotely soon. I just don't see that happening. There's a lot of people who still haven't adopted 4K, and so we're still in the process of that happening. So it's not like we're going to have to see a PlayStation 5 Pro for the sake of 8K. That's just not why we would see that. And so he does also mention the possibility of, if they were to increase the GPU or something like that, you would then have to increase the CPU and the memory to avoid bottlenecks. And we know that the PS5 itself, the whole purpose of this console is to remove bottlenecks. So it just wouldn't make much sense if Sony were to create a PS5 Pro that then added further or future bottlenecks. This doesn't make sense. But at the same time, we do have to take into account, at least on Sony's side, that they did make it clear before that the PS4 Pro was kind of a test for them to see how the market would receive a mid-gen console refresh with a console that was more powerful and more capable. And they said it was a big success, and they really just kind of made it seem like they plan to do it again. So I think that Albert Pinello brings up a good, reason why he thinks it's unlikely, or multiple reasons why it's unlikely. But again, I just think that we will see a PS5 Pro. I think we will see another mid-gen Xbox. I mean, all you have to do is look at the naming convention of the Xbox itself, the Xbox Series. They're doing that so they can add more maybe in the future. I mean, we know they're going to have the Series S, but still. Anyway, guys, moving on from that, before I spend too much time talking about it, we're going to talk about Leyou Technologies and how it seems unlikely that Sony is going to be able to acquire them. A week after Bloomberg reported that Sony is considering a bid for Leyou Technologies, Chinese giant Tencent has announced that it is now in, quote, exclusive, unquote, talks to acquire the company. Leyou, the parent company of Splash Damage, they're known for Brink and some Gears of War titles, and Digital Extremes, they're known for Warframe, had previously been in talks with Tencent backed iDream Sky Technology. According to last week's reports, Sony had hired a financial advisor to edge out competition, but Tencent has claimed the lead. Tencent continues its global expansion efforts with acquisitions of studios that augment the company's exposure in PC, mobile, and console development for China and for global markets. Nico partners Daniel Ahmad told GamesBeat, Leyou owns a number of studios that have expertise in global online free-to-play game development for console and PC, an area that Tencent is actively exploring as it expands overseas. So, I mean, basically, what you need to know from this, guys, is any chance that Sony may have had of acquiring this company and these studios, it seems like it just kind of went out the window here. I mean, look, I'm not a fan of Tencent at all. At all. So I would have much rather, seen Sony acquire these studios, but it is what it is. It's just business, and they apparently are in exclusive talks. So, I guess we can kind of remove this from the equation. I guess we can kind of move on from this and realize that these are studios that Sony is most likely not going to acquire. So then the question becomes, what is Sony's next move? We know that Sony is going to continue pursuing studios, but I know people are naturally going to think, well, what about WB Games? We know that they're selling or trying to sell, and we know that Microsoft's pursuing them. Should Sony now pursue them? And maybe, it's a big maybe, but the big question is, does it fit? Does it make sense? I think that there are other studios, frankly, that make more sense. We'll probably talk more about this on the podcast tomorrow, but I just wanted to update you guys and let you know that for those of you who were really interested in the idea of Sony possibly acquiring this company and acquiring these studios, I wouldn't hold on to this. I mean, I don't know if this means that there's absolutely zero chance now, because it says they're in exclusive talks. The talks could break down. It might not go through, but you know, it's pretty telling. So yeah, just had to update you guys with that. But finally, I just want to take a moment here to show you guys what the Godfall box art looks like. And I think it actually looks really cool. I think this one sticks out a little bit more than the Spider-Man Miles Morales, simply because, I don't know, man, like if there's one thing I did really like, or I do really like about Godfall, is the art style. I mean, it just kind of stands out, and I just think it looks really cool here. The color palette, the way it kind of blends together really seamlessly with the blue border and the white PS5, or the white, you know, the white at the top. I just think it looks really good, and I just wanted to take a moment to show you guys that we are starting to see more and more game devs and publishers putting out their PlayStation 5 box art. So yeah, really cool. We now have, I believe, Spider-Man Miles Morales. I did see Horizon Forbidden West, but I'm not sure if it's official. It may have just been fan-made, but either way, it looks really cool. And then we also have Godfall now, which is official alongside Spider-Man Miles Morales. So we'll see what other box art pops up. But there you go. That's going to do it for the video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. I'm going to be really interested to see what you guys have to say. What do you think about Albert Pinello's comments about mid-gen refresh consoles? Do you think he's on the money? Do you think he's correct and we're not going to see them? Or do you still think we are going to see them? What do you think about Tencent apparently being in exclusive talks with Leyou Technologies, and how that basically means Sony is not going to be able to acquire these studios now? And what do you think of the Godfall box art? I will be very interested to see what you guys have to say. Leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you haven't already, hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.